If you think you know so much about a particular subject, write it out. See how much you actually know. It's a humbling experience. Assalamu alaikum. I tweeted something the other day about the requirement of silence for you to have an understanding on anything. You know, we live in an interesting world now where you have this democratization of platforms. So you got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever the case may be, whatever platforms you're using, and it gives the impression that everybody's opinion is equal. So you have the professor, the academic, the scholar, the intellectual, along with the troll, the high schooler, the 17, the 16-year-old, and everybody's equal. And the fact is they're not. But unfortunately, because you have equal access to everything, it just gives you this impression that all opinions come in equal, have equal weight, and they don't. Now, if you want to understand anything, you have to train yourself to fight an urge to share the second you gain that information. I was listening the other day to a podcast episode by the Mad Mamluks, and for those of you who don't listen to podcasts, you really gotta start listening to podcasts. One of my favorite ones is the Mad Mamluks, and it's not because they interviewed me. Shout out to the Mad Mamluks. But it's such enlightening and fascinating conversations that they have. And the last episode that they dropped was with Sheikh Amin Khalwatiya. He's based out of Chicago. I still haven't had the honor and the blessing of meeting him, inshallah. I hope this happens. But one of the things he mentioned was how he told one of the guys on the Mad Mamluks, he's a sheikh too, that when after he studied and he came back, he told him to be quiet for 6 months. And the thing is, he was saying that this was such a great advice. It's one of the best counsels that he's received. New information has an alluring thing about them. It's because you feel this kind of high, you feel this elation that you learned something, and now you feel like you want to share it with everybody. Especially when you feel like, oh my God, this is so insightful, I've just learned something. Or especially if you connect the dots in a way that you haven't connected before, and it struck a light bulb in your mind, and now you think you've gotten this great insight. The more you read and the more you expose yourself to knowledge overall, the more it's kind of paradoxical. Because on the one hand, it's so satisfying that you're feeding your mind and you're broadening your scope and horizons. But at the same time, every time you get this high, this elation from, oh my God, I've connected the dots in this way and in that way, the more you broaden your horizons and read, the more you find out that so many other people before you got into this insight before you did. And so you become even more shy and more hesitant with regards to sharing information. Because like, is it really new? I mean, I got this insight right now, but who says nobody else did? I mean, it's kind of arrogant if you think about it. Like, oh my God, I got this insight. So it's a scattered thought. This may not have much of a point at all. I just thought I wanted to share something with regards to silence and the importance of the student spending more time listening and gaining knowledge than trying to share. There comes a time for sharing. And that time is going to manifest itself to you when it's appropriate. But the second you start to seek out a platform and seek out a means to disseminate before you're ready, before you were told that you need to disseminate, that should be a sign for you that maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe you should kind of lay low a little while. And especially if you have a proper assessment of yourself. One of the things that I do, and this is going to be really scattered. One of the things that I do with regards to my medical education right now is I have a combination of some things are available online, but some of the stuff that I have to get through, like slides, PowerPoint slides that they give us, notes, some essential readings and whatnot, when they're sitting out there in the cloud on the internet, they may feel like there's so much of it. But then the second I print them, actually I'll tell you. So I've got my dining table is not really a dining table. It's where I arrange my stuff. So this is, if you go through 2 weeks of infection and immunity module, You have all these readings, you have all of these notes, you have all this stuff. Looking at it online, it looks like, oh my God, there's so much to go through in a couple of weeks. But then you print them out and you're like, this is not that bad. I could do this. And then you go through it, but then at the same time you realize there's all of these books, giant books. And all they want to teach you right now for you to be a competent intern by the time you finish, this is what you gotta get through. So online it looks like it's so much, but then you print it and you're like, that's not that much really. That actually is the same way that I look at my knowledge. The brain is kind of like the cloud, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you have this false impression about yourself where you think, oh, I know so much, I've studied all of this, I've done all of that. But the second you start to write down what you actually know, and when I mean know, I don't mean you just have broad strokes. I mean you take a subject and say something that you're really interested in, and sit down and just actually write out, like, what do you know about the subject? You'll find yourself having a hard time sometimes. And it's a good exercise to get into, to expose your own ignorance to yourself. You have to engage in writing, not publicly, but just even for yourself. Write out. If you think you know so much about a particular subject, write it out. See how much you actually know. It's a humbling experience. For example, right now we're going through a cardiovascular module. If I want to know, if I know all of the different arteries, major arteries and branches from the thorax, from the body, the abdomen, to the arms, to the head, to the legs, one thing that I personally do is, do you actually know this? One of the things that I do with regards to it is sit down and trace it. Write out. The blood goes from where in the heart, and then pick a point basically and trace it. Where does it go? And name all the branches, name all of this stuff. You realize that maybe I don't know all of the branches when it comes to, say, the arteries that go up to from the external carotid artery. I need to sit down and go through this and like actually trace out, like this comes before this and then that. That's just an example to give you an idea. If you think you know so much about a subject, so you have people that talk about, there's no need for examples. I mean, you guys can come up with your own examples. Any subject you come up with, just sit down and go like, how much do I know about it? And when you write it out, you find yourself, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. Maybe this is not a subject I should really engage in. Maybe I'm 22, 23 years old, and that scholar has been doing this for longer than I've been alive, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and I should just shut up and listen. So yeah, it's a scattered thought. There's no rhyme or reason behind this, other than I just wanted to record something for you guys to see. We'll get back to the Q&A in the next one, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.